Best indication yet that Caitlin Clark is on her way back toward a return for the Indiana Fever. Stephanie White did talk about Caitlin Clark, and I thought the comments were fairly telling. Here's what she had to say.
Caitlin, able to go through your little walkthrough or whatever you normally do, and what do you want to see ultimately to get comfort?
What if the WNBA's most valuable player isn't even close to her prime, yet the weight of an entire league already sits on her shoulders? That's the reality Caitlin Clark walked into the moment she was drafted. She hasn't even had the chance to define her rookie year, but somehow, she's already become the face of a billion-dollar conversation. And here's the wild part. Clark hasn't even been on the court for weeks. A painful groin injury benched her, forcing the Indiana Fever to survive without their brightest star. But when one short video surfaced, Caitlin lacing up, jogging down the court, firing off a smooth pass, the internet didn't just notice. It erupted. What looked like a simple practice drill turned into breaking news. Within minutes, fans were flooding timelines with messages of hope. Rivals were suddenly biting their nails, and league executives were doing the math on just how much money, attention, and credibility ride on her return. Because this isn't just about basketball. This is about whether one rookie can carry the pressure of saving an entire league before she's even fully healthy. And the question hanging in the air is bigger than when she'll play again. It's whether the WNBA has accidentally placed its entire future on the shoulders of one player who's still figuring out what it means to be a professional. At first glance, the scene looked ordinary. A player taking warm-up jogs, a couple of half-speed dribbles, and some casual passes around the perimeter. But to anyone who's been following the Caitlin Clark saga, it was anything but ordinary. This was the sight millions had been waiting for. Clark back on the hardwood, moving like the player who had already electrified the game before injury forced her out. Just weeks earlier, the headlines told a different story. A groin injury that wouldn't go away. Whispers that her season might be over before it even started. Fans who bought tickets months in advance suddenly facing the possibility of watching a Fever team stripped of its biggest attraction. The WNBA's brightest light flickered, and for a moment, the league felt the weight of her absence. And then, that clip dropped. One shaky, grainy video of Clark at practice was enough to set off a chain reaction across social media. Within hours, it was everywhere. Fever fans spammed comment sections with fire emojis, bold predictions, and desperate calls to throw her into the next starting lineup. She's back, they wrote, as if 3 words alone could rewrite the season. But the reaction wasn't the same everywhere. Rival fanbases, rivals players, they weren't celebrating. They were calculating, because everyone knew what this meant. Clark's presence alone changes the geometry of the game. Her shooting stretches defenses to their breaking point. Her passing opens lanes for teammates who suddenly look like stars. Her confidence energizes crowds that make road arenas feel like playoff games. This wasn't just a practice video.
Look at the Fever injury list. It's just wild to see. It's like the Star Wars scroll at the end of one of those movies. It's just a endless list of players who have been out, in, back out of the lineup again, and really just a lineup that you could build if you were the Indiana Fever. You could roll out there if you were experimenting, depending on the situation. And
it was a warning shot. The second Caitlin Clark stepped back on that court, the balance of power in the WNBA shifted, and nobody could pretend otherwise. For all the league's talk about parity, the truth is simple. Caitlin Clark is the engine of the WNBA. Ticket sales, her name is on them. TV ratings, they spike every time she plays. Viral highlights, she owns them. Without her, the conversation fades. With her, the league dominates headlines. And that's why Clark's return triggered full-blown panic behind the scenes. Players like Angel Reese and Aya Wilson, who built their narratives around either mocking or challenging her, suddenly faced the reality that all their talk might collapse if Clark storms back into form. Even Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, who insists the league isn't about one player, knows better. She's seen the receipts. Every sold-out arena, every broadcast spike, every merchandise boom. Clark drives it all. And if you think this panic is just media hype, wait until you hear what Indiana went through without her. The Fever season without Caitlin was a brutal crash back to earth. Sophie Cunningham out. Sydney Colson out. Chloe Bibby sidelined. The injury list read like the end credits of a movie. With Clark gone too, Indiana's offense collapsed. Without her gravity pulling defenders out to the logo, spacing disappeared. Aaliyah Boston, last year's Rookie of the Year, looked overwhelmed with multiple defenders draped on her every possession. Kelsey Mitchell fought like a warrior, dropping 20-plus points on exhausted legs, but it was never enough. What fans saw was not professional basketball, it was survival. Games turned into ugly scrimmages. Leads vanished. Entire quarters were thrown away like free Costco samples. Commentators compared the Fever to YMCA runs, and honestly, they weren't wrong. So when those first practice videos dropped, Fever fans lost their minds. The second Caitlin appeared in uniform again, Indiana lit up with hope. Comment sections exploded with wild predictions about playoff pushes and miracle runs. Some fans joked she could suit up with a crutch and still outscore half the league. Others simply spammed 3 words, "She's back." But fans weren't the only ones watching. Rival coaches were glued to their screens, calculating how much harder scouting reports would become. League executives silently celebrated too, because they knew TV numbers were about to spike again. And opponents? They weren't smiling. Because a Caitlin Clark return doesn't just boost Indiana. It changes everything. But here's the real dilemma. Should she even come back at all this season? On one side, the cautious voices were loud. Don't risk it. Groin injuries linger. Rush her back too soon, and the damage could last years. Why gamble an entire career for a desperate playoff push? Better to shut it down, heal, and return in 2026 ready to dominate. But on the other side, the urgency was deafening. Fever fans want her now. TV networks want her now. The WNBA's marketing department is practically begging for her return. They're not worried about 2026. They want sold-out arenas this year. They want playoff drama this year. They want the golden ticket back on the floor. And then there's Clark herself. Competitive doesn't even begin to describe her. This is the same player who carried Iowa through March Madness slugfests while the world doubted her. Sitting on the sidelines watching her team collapse? That's not in her DNA. If she feels she can play, she's going to push. And the ripple effects of that decision go way beyond just Indiana. Without Clark, Indiana's playoff hopes were hanging by the thinnest thread. The Sparks and Valkyries were breathing down their necks. The Mystics were lurking. Tiebreakers mattered. Every game was life or death. Now picture Clark returning in a must-win against the Sparks. Overnight, Indiana's odds of clinching a playoff spot skyrocket. Los Angeles panics. Golden State scrambles. Rival players who mocked her absence suddenly faced the nightmare of being eliminated by her comeback. Angel Reese's trash talk? Meaningless if Clark buries her with a 30-foot three. Aya Wilson's jealousy? Exposed if Clark walks back in and steals headlines again. The entire playoff picture bends around one player, a rookie. But if you think players are the only ones sweating, wait until you see how refs are bracing for her return. The officiating around Clark has been a scandal all season. She's been shoved, hacked, even poked in the eye, and refs swallowed their whistles. Fans noticed, and outrage went viral game after game. Now imagine her return. Every foul will be dissected in slow motion within seconds. Every shove, every cheap shot, every missed call will trend on Twitter before the ball even hits the ground. Referees know it. The league knows it. Fans definitely know it. Clark's return isn't just about basketball. It's about credibility. Protect her, and critics scream favoritism. Ignore her, and the league looks corrupt. Either way, the spotlight is back, and officials are terrified. And through all of this chaos, there's one question nobody can ignore. Caitlin Clark's return isn't just about one team limping into the playoffs. It's about the survival of the WNBA in the national spotlight. With Clark, arenas sell out. Jerseys fly off shelves. Clips dominate TikTok. Casual fans tune in. Without her, the conversation dies. Liberty versus Lynx? Great basketball, sure, but it won't trend. Clark versus anyone. Instant headlines. For Fever fans, her comeback means hope. For rivals, it means panic. For the WNBA, it means life support. The truth is harsh, but undeniable. The league has become completely dependent on one rookie to keep the spotlight burning. So here we are. Caitlin Clark is ramping up, inching closer to a return that could either rescue Indiana's season or risk her long-term health. Fans are begging for her comeback. Rivals are dreading it. Executives are counting on it. And Clark herself? She's never been the type to sit quietly and wait. The question now isn't just whether she'll play. It's whether the WNBA can even survive without her. Is Caitlin Clark the league's savior, or its greatest weakness?